Hello everyone, good morning and welcome to Planetiers World Gathering from Lisbon to the world. My name is Catarina Canelas, I'm a journalist from TVI and it's an honor for me being here today. In the next 2 hours I will present our next discussion and I will moderate other 3 more panels. So the main subject of our next debate is how can technology be sustainable? What a big challenge it is. Our 2 guests are Patrik Sandin, an Exo Ambassador used to making exponential acceleration run with companies, and David Hartmann, who has worked in the polymer industry for over 20 years. So David Orban, who has just spoke some minutes ago, the founder of Network Society Ventures, will be the moderator. I think they are with us right now. Yes, they are. Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, everyone. So, David, it's up to you now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And David and Patrik, welcome. I am very excited to have this conversation. We also have quite some time, so I hope we can go a little bit deeper in some topics that otherwise only get scratched at the surface. I would like to start in a first round of remarks asking you where you are and what do you do? What is your field? What is your specialty? And then we can go from there to go deeper in the topic of our panel. Patrik, why don't you start?
Thanks, David. Happy to join you on this panel. So I'm calling in from Shanghai, China, where I currently work as Director of Ventures and Growth for Ericsson One, which is the internal incubator and accelerator within the Swedish headquartered telecoms equipment company Ericsson. And previously, before joining this role with Ericsson a few months ago, I was chairman of the Natural Step, which is sustainability NGO headquartered in Sweden.
Thank you very much. And what about you, David?
I'm not far away from Patrik. I'm about 2 hours drive away outside of Shanghai in Changshu, where we have the headquarters of Helio Additive, the 3D printing software company that I founded. Before this, I used to lead a group of companies within the chemical industry as part of chemical industry giant Covestro.
Thank you. And so talking about technologies, of course, we must have a global perspective, but I find it fascinating. Some would say ominous, others exciting, that both of you are in China. Is that a coincidence? Is that a premise of some of the things that we should discuss? Both of you, of course, have had your personal and professional trajectories that ended up so close to each other. Why and how do you find China fascinating, exciting, and hopefully welcoming? Patrik?
Right. Well, China for me is fascinating for many reasons. I think the scale of the country is fascinating in itself for somebody coming from a tiny country like Sweden. The growth that China has been experiencing and everything that entails, both positive and negative, was very, I think, important for me starting up the China office for the Natural Step way back in 2012-13 to really help China to tackle sustainability issues. And now working for Ericsson with the aim of creating the future growth engines, helping to create new startups and infusing sustainability thinking into that as well. For the Asia region, I think it's an important mission for myself.
And David, what was the path that led you to where you are, and how do you perceive China's present as you perceive it and as you experience it, and what do you think about China's future?
I first came here in 1997, so I've been coming here on and off for the last 25 years or so, and have been here for the last decade as part of my role within the chemical industry. And I guess we've made it our home here. I think this is one of the most exciting places to be in the world. If I just look at the kind of talent that we're able to recruit here, if I look at just how far people's lives here have developed over the last 20 years, I think there's, in my opinion, nowhere else on earth that has quite so much stimulus from different perspectives and quite so many interesting things promised for the future. I just look at the companies that or the startups that surround me here in Changshu, and it already is very exciting to think about where we're going in the future and what kind of businesses we can create here, also with a view to sustainability.
Yes, I think that is a very important point. And let's still stay in China a bit for that. An extremely rapidly developing country that has been able to uplift hundreds of millions of people from extreme poverty to middle class lifestyles, did so in the past decades with very little regard to the environmental impact of the effort. And paradoxically, the improved life conditions and wealth came with severe impacts on the quality of life itself in terms of urban pollution, for example, which China is kind of famous for. However, it feels from the outside that more recently there has been an increasing, maybe an accelerating, perhaps a jolting, with an increasing rate of acceleration, kind of attention to environmental concerns and an ability to pass legislation and regulations that would follow through in this. I remember being in Shanghai already a few years ago, and here is the video that I took of an intersection in Shanghai, and it was fascinating because the sound of this video, which I muted, is fine just like that. This crossing was completely silent because already then all the motorcycles were electric, and it was then that the mayor of Shanghai actually announced that all the public transportation would be converted to electric as well. And today, China is a leader in electric transportation. So how do you see, Patrik, the attention of China in environmental improvement, or the diminishing of the negative environmental impact of the bettering of people's lives, and their ability to translate that attention into concrete action?
Yeah, that's a very important question, David, because I think China is uniquely positioned, given the structure of the economy and the political system, to, I think, rapidly implement new initiatives and policies that have been decided upon. And we saw that 2 years ago, or maybe it was 3 years ago now, when the new environmental law was introduced, a very strict environmental law, causing hundreds of thousands of factories to be shut down, just surrounding Beijing, Tianjin, and the northern area, for example, not to mention the whole country. And actively working to, I would say, push out or to get factories to move from crowded areas to less crowded areas, to clear up the air, etc. And in some cases giving incentives to do that as well. So I think they are taking it seriously. They have been working for a long time now to get carbon trading going, and it has been going in a test environment for certain industries. The heavy polluting industries are now covered by the carbon trading schemes within China, and it will be rolled out across other industries. We're seeing how they're adopting more European or Western style garbage sorting in residential compounds. It used to be that we just throw everything into one bucket and somebody would take care of it, but now we need to classify and sort the garbage, and it's much more professionally managed just within the last year. And this has been rolled out in Shanghai and will quickly roll out across China as well. So they're taking huge leaps, and we saw recently an announcement that now China aims to be actually carbon neutral by, I think it's if I'm not mistaken, 2050 or something, which again is a huge commitment, right, to further investing in renewable energy, etc.
And David, tell me a bit about your specific industry, 3D printing, digital manufacturing in general, promises to really disrupt the way that we think about the processes that lead to the products that we use every day, both in terms of features and characteristics that may not be feasible in other production processes, but also the ability to profoundly rethink the production process itself. How does this lead to more sustainable industrial production, and how do you specifically help in this area?
3D printing, from my perspective, has a couple of very important advantages, and one of them is the ability to make communities independent. And I think going forward, as we feel more the impact of climate change, as certain resources become scarcer, and as the pressure to be carbon neutral or fully circular increases, being independent as communities is really important. Whether you're a coastal community under the threat of sea level rises, or whether you're a small community somewhere in the Andes, your supply chains are going to be interrupted, and having some form of self-sufficiency is going to be hugely important. So that's one area where we're focusing on extremely strongly, which is what is the threshold that you need to get to with a new manufacturing technology like additive manufacturing to make it useful for those kind of communities to maintain their infrastructure, to maintain their value chains. Yeah, what barriers are still in the way for that to happen? The other area that I think has fascinating sustainability implications is the ability of these new manufacturing technologies to act as a prosthesis for human beings, and to make us extend our power as human beings, right? I was listening to your talk before, and you were talking about artificial intelligence and artificial intelligence not as something that we should be afraid of, but as more of a empowerment. And we need to rethink a whole lot of things. The same way with new manufacturing techniques, they can act as a powerful prosthetic for people's capability. And then it's up to us to apply that more powerful capability to the kind of values that we hold as a society, in particular values towards circularity and sustainability.
The nature of exponential change, or even jolting change, is such that the changes surrounding us are ever more difficult to decipher in other implications. And at the same time, the solutions that we find are extremely valuable. So rather than relying on a central authority to decide what should be done, the value is in experimentation at the periphery, and then monitoring what works, adopt it, and deploy it across. This kind of decentralized organization is something that technologies support, even engender in many areas. Digital manufacturing, additive manufacturing is one of them, but so is, for example, blockchain in finance, which doesn't rely on a central authority, but digital currencies are able to function in a network of participants. Now, China is perceived as a centralized and authoritarian organization as a country in the West. But actually, the area where both of you are has been part of an experiment at the periphery. Shanghai and Shenzhen represented a special economic zone where, shielded from the decisions of Beijing, a new balance between the more market-oriented economy and the social values adopted across China could be found. And 20, 30 years later, the experiment is so successful that not only China itself, but hundreds of territories across the world are now copying the concept of special economic zones and this kind of decentralized experimentation that is shielded from the overbearing power of a centralized regulator. How do you see that, Patrik, as a necessary component of innovation, experimentation, and observation of the outcome of the experiments to produce sustainable technologies that can be then globally deployed?
Yeah, I think not only for sustainable technology, but for any new venture creation, it has become the norm to follow the lean startup methodology, which is similar to what you talked about, right? So starting with understanding the problem, the user, the customer pain, and then designing a solution to meet that, and then rapid iterative testing to validate whether your assumption was correct, etc. So we see that from entrepreneurship to large companies, and actually having previously consulted with large companies in China, I see that actually this has been part of at least private Chinese companies' mindset for quite a long time. They are not afraid to experiment in many cases. They seem not to operate in the same sort of quick return on investment that many Western, or in particular the US companies are managed. Now for sustainability, having still in many cases, for at least for many people, to prove itself, it's also important that we then design the sustainable solution in the same manner, and that's what I've been working with before, and now within Ericsson One as well, to try and see, can we, from understanding a potential opportunity for innovation, then frame those innovative sustainability constraints, if you will, or at least design principles for sustainability, and then test our way to a better, ideally 10x solution that will outcompete status quo with either better performance or lower cost.
And David, I mentioned blockchain and digital currencies. China is one of the countries that is introducing a central bank digital currency. Admittedly, those who are supporters of Bitcoin will not like it because it doesn't have a lot of the characteristics of their ideal adoption and deployment of blockchain. However, as compared to what is happening in the West, it still represents a very important new development. Do you have the Chinese digital wallet yet with the new Chinese digital currency? And if yes, what is your experience? Have you had the chance of using it?
Short answer, no, I don't have it. We went digital on payments in China, I think, quite a while ago. And for me, the main way of paying is with WeChat Pay, yeah, which allows me to leave my wallet at home anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It is fascinating how the technology evolution goes in waves. There was a time when Europe was leading in mobile technology. I remember traveling to the US and looking condescendingly to primitive phones running on slow networks. Then, with the introduction of iPhone first and Android later, the US recaptured leadership in the production of handsets and of a certain software ecosystem. But China, which all of us believed was lagging, and we were looking at the Great Firewall that stopped poor Chinese watching YouTube videos or coming on Facebook's warm embrace, actually was able to develop a thriving local ecosystem of solutions. And in many ways, these are far ahead in terms of functionality of what we are using currently, both in Europe and in America. And this is, I think, a very, very intriguing example of how there is value in alternative ecosystems being maintained, even at the cost of appearing either censorious or protectionist. And the current effort that a lot of people see as misguided from the US government against Google, that is accused of applying monopolistic practices, could lead under certain conditions to a larger variety of approaches and solutions, similarly enriching the technology ecosystem. Avoiding monocultures is very important. So, Patrik, how do you see the future of technology in the next 10 years as we try to achieve and beat the goals of the Paris Accord, which are ambitious, but maybe not sufficient in order to build a sustainable society?
True. I do think technology and innovation in general has a huge role to play in getting us there. I think we, as a society, need to shift a lot of our practices and behaviors over the coming years, not only on the energy production side, but also on the logistics, the transportation, the consumption of things, how they're produced, where they're produced and consumed. And technology will help all of that. And from Ericsson's perspective, we are, of course, now being one of the market leaders in, or the market leader perhaps in 5G technology, seeing how 5G finally enables use cases for the Industry 4.0, which has been talked about for a long time, but has been waiting for the speed of connectivity with the right latency that 5G now can provide, to have all of these connected devices, the Internet of Things and the industrial internet, to talk to each other and provide the right sensory data to make decisions. And that will drive inefficiencies, it will reduce waste, it will create a lot of new opportunities for adding sort of a new stack of technology on top of that can create new solutions. And from an Ericsson One perspective, where I sit, that's where we are trying to play, to create many of those new solutions and industry plays that can leverage this new technology.
Circular economy is a goal that nature has achieved billion years ago and never thought of abandoning. We lived under the assumption that an unbounded world would forever tolerate our blindness of the consequences of our actions. Now we realize that is not the case, and redesigning and re-architecting our economy is difficult but necessary. How do you see, David, the next 10 years as we necessarily adopt in a deep manner in every corner of the economy these circular principles of extreme sustainability?
Mm-hmm. Well, definitely technology has a part to play in that over the next decade. Yeah, we need to continue to make exponential leaps in what we can do with energy generation and with energy storage and other forms. But I think the key change that needs to come along with that is a cultural change, and a change in how we look at, as cultures, at desire and what we want and how we reach out to what we want. Even in an environment where infinite resources are available, would be available, it's arguable that wanting those infinite resources might not be the best thing. And as you say, we see that in nature. Technologically, though, the next decade, I think every industry will have different approaches for dealing with what's coming. And I look at it from the chemical industry, where sustainability in the chemical industry was not a major topic 10 years ago, which is a relatively short period of time. And today, I think almost every leader in the chemical industry acknowledges that a move to circularity is in some form important. And I'm particularly proud that my previous company, Covestro, has made such very, very loud statements about becoming circular, and the commitments they make to it. People like Neste and Borealis and so on going along there as well. And I think that's very, very heartening. And if these leaders who are advocating change in the chemical industry can get traction with their teams, can get traction with their customers, then over the next 10 years, we could see a massive shift in the circularity of the polymer industry or the chemical industry in general. If that traction can't be gained, such as, for instance, if customers decide that they do not value that and they do not prioritize that, then unfortunately, we may not see enough change over the next decade for it to really matter.
The 80s, especially in Germany, was an important period of ecologically inspired consciousness, and the green movement promoted a progressive reduction in consumption, to the point where people were asked to change their light bulbs rather than having the standard or traditional 75 or 100 watt light bulb. Maybe 60 watts or 40 watts are enough. Now, at the time, this also meant to diminish the lumens, the amount of light that those bulbs would emit. And yes, the Green Party in Germany was successful in getting into parliament, but they remained a minor player. because the majority of the people would not actually take that step. No one, or not enough people, said, you are right, I want to have lunch or dinner in the dark. Or I am exaggerating, with an amount of light that is half of what I had before, and search for my food with my fork rather than seeing what I'm eating. This is, I think, important because the sustainability of sustainability comes not from the moral effort that a very small minority is able to make and to keep making day after day in their commitment to self-sacrifice. The sustainability of sustainability comes from, in my example, LED lights that allow you to have more lumens, more light, while reducing consumption by 90%. And this is the role of technology, of delivering higher productivity, higher quality, higher capacity and features that people enjoy and eagerly adopt, while becoming naturally sustainable in the production processes and in the consumption and recycling processes as well. So how is this dynamic playing out in your opinion, Patrik? Do you agree that it is not likely that the vast majority of people would embrace degrowth and self-sacrifice, that the role of technology is to make sustainability itself sustainable?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, because we have known about where the world is heading or where we are right now, the fact that we're in the sixth mass extinction, that climate emergency, etc. We've actually known that we were on this path ever since the 70s, when MIT and the Club of Rome did the Limits to Growth study and actually forecasted pretty precisely what would be right now. So we've known that, but been able to take collective action, right? And I think one of the reasons, to go back to your point, is that the green movement, the sustainability movement, has been too focused on communicating scientific facts, or in some sense scientific consensus, coupled with the need early on to be reduced, to use, to limit, to sacrifice. And of course that's not very appealing to most people who like the comfort of our daily life, right? So we need to find a compelling narrative for them, a positive narrative of a positive future. And I think the role of technology here is, as you said, it's to unlock abundance. It's to help create what was once scarce and make it abundant, but in a way that do not harm natural or social systems. We've also known since the late days what nature and society requires of us sustainable. That was the main benefit from the natural step movement, and Dr. Carl-Henrik Urban, who founded STEP, arrived at this scientific process of 4 principles that define what sustainability is. Now, the big question then, how do we get the leaders and the general public to comply with that and to take those steps? And here again, technology enables us to do things differently, learning from nature by help us to produce things cheaper, less wasteful, less harmful, etc. Right? So I think what we need to understand is there is no, or doesn't have to be, a trade-off between sustainability and profit, between sustainability and a comfortable way of life. And many of the leading companies now have been launching sustainable solutions, are proving that. And studies by Bob Willard in Canada, for example, show companies that embrace sustainability in their core business actually can increase their bottom line profit by between 50 to 80%. Depends on the business. So that is kind of proven as well in studies. So I wonder why is not more companies doing this, and why aren't more people doing that?
Exactly. David, to conclude, maybe you can also confirm that the next step is to having not only businesses and the industries themselves, but the funds that are financing those businesses to realize that sustainability is a better deal, not only for the environment, but for the bottom line of the businesses and for the returns that the funds want to realize as well, especially taking externalities into account, which logically we can less and less ignore. And maybe you have been able to observe this in your field as well.
Well, I think from two sides, right? You can see BlackRock doing, for instance, a rather major effort in that direction, right? But at the same time, if you listen to analyst calls, if you, let's say, just do a season of analyst calls in the chemical industry, you do not hear a lot of analyst questions about sustainability. Yeah, you don't see analysts challenging CEOs and their boards on what they're doing. You see a few activists invest, but you don't really see the analyst community doing. So I think there's still a fair way to go. But yeah, people like BlackRock are starting things, and hopefully it continues in that direction.
Well, if it starts at the top, then maybe it will percolate rapidly too. And it is a question of accelerating the process. So with that, I want to thank David and Patrik for this stimulating conversation. And let's make sure that sustainability becomes sustainable thanks to technology.
Thank you very much.
And back to the organizers and the coordinator of these sessions. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, David, Patrik, and David, for this important, and so interesting conversation. Indeed, nowadays, we can't think in innovation without thinking in sustainability. So we'll be back in a few minutes with another conversation. See you.